Okay, so here goes. We're going to be studying Pirqe Abot, Perek Bet, Halacha Yod Aleph, Hu Haya Omer. So Hu Haya Omer, we are continuing with Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and the Hamisha Talmidim of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Hu Haya Omer, Im Hiyu Kol Chachmei Israel אם יהיו כל חכמי ישראל בכף מאזניים. If you took all the Chachamim of the Jewish people and you put them on one side of the scale, ואליעזר ben Horkanus בכף שנייה, and then you would take Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, who was one of these five Talmidim of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, and you would put him on the other side of the scale. Machriya et kulam. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, because of his great knowledge of Torah, his immense knowledge of Torah, he would end up weighing the scale to the other side. So his knowledge of Torah was superlative. And it was so great that not only was he the Gadol Hador, but his knowledge in that one person was greater than the knowledge of all of the other Chachamim combined together, which is incredible. So the Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was truly a remarkable mind. The Gemara tells us a few things about Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. We know not only that he was a remarkable mind and a remarkable intellect, but as often happens with people of tremendous knowledge who are greater intellectually than their generation, that oftentimes there is a contentious relationship with those around. So we know that at the end, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, he died. When he passed away, he was shamuti, he was a nidui, right? It's a very sad story. And maybe one day we'll study what took place, why he was put in nidui, what happened, but that's a problem that often is true. When you have great Chachamim who are way advanced intellectually, as Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai says about Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, so you have these types of issues coming up. But the Chachamim knew he was great, so much so that when he was about to die, they went to visit him. And Rabbi Akiva is considered one of the greatest Tanaim ever. Rabbi Akiva says that he was looking at Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus and looking at his great knowledge, and he said that knowledge of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus is like the vast ocean. And I feel like I'm just almost like a dog that just came to lick a little water from the ocean. That's how I compare myself, my knowledge, to the knowledge of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. This was said by none other than Rabbi Akiva. So you understand that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was indeed an incredible intellectual figure in the history of our Chachamim. Sometimes we have people like that whose knowledge is simply mind-boggling. We can't understand it. I think about Harambam. I don't understand Harambam. I mean, there's some Chachamim that I can understand their knowledge. I can wrap my mouth, not that I feel equal to them. No, I don't feel equal, but I have enough intellectual power to understand their greatness, and I can kind of understand the way something about them. But in the case of Harambam, for example, his knowledge was so incredible and so immense and so precise and so complete that I can't get my mind around it. I just don't understand it. Whenever I study any of Harambam's works, I'm in awe. I'm simply in awe. So getting back now to Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, so because of this, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai says it exactly like it is. He doesn't call him Gadol Hador. He says he's so great that this one person has more knowledge than all the other people. Now, this isn't a generation of Tanaim. Don't forget that. This isn't a generation of great wisdom. So this was something very difficult to understand, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. But then there's something interesting. Let's continue the Mishnah. Let's continue the Mishnah. Abba Shaul Omer Mishmo. There was a Chacham. He was a young Chacham, meaning a junior Chacham. And he transmitted something similar but different in the name of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. He transmitted the following. If you took all the Hachamim of the Jewish people and you put them on one side of the scale, so far it's just like the previous statement, right? And then you took Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus and you put him in the same side of the scale as all the other Hachamim. Elazar ben Arach ben Chav Sheniya, but then you take Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, who was the other one of these 5 Talmidim, because remember we said that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5-star Talmidim. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach Machriyahu et Kulam, he has more knowledge than all the other Hachamim combined, including Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. Okay. This is strange. What's happening in this Mishnah? So who was greater? Was Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus greater? Or was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach greater? And why do we have these two varying traditions in the name of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai? One tradition that is said directly from Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai makes it clear that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was the greater Talmid. He says if you took all the Hachamim in one side and Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus in the other, he has more intelligence than all of them combined. But then you have the statement of Abba Shaul in the name of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, the same Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he says, no, if you took Rabbi Elazar ben Horkanus and you put him with all the Hachamim, and then you take Rabbi Elazar ben Horkanus and you add him, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, and you put him on the other side, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach machriya et kulam. Let me tell you what I think is happening here. I think that originally, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was indeed the star pupil of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. And we learned from Pirqe, the Rabbi Eliezer, Tanaitic source, we learn exactly how Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus became the star student of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, and how he became recognized as the greatest Talmid of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he was indeed in that, he held that position for many years. I think that after that, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach came to the scene and he passed Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. And the Gemara in Masechet Hagigah actually states how Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, there's different levels of knowledge that you teach the Talmidim. So of course, all the Talmidim, you teach them halacha, right? You teach them Mishnah, of course, that's Pashut Mikra, first you have to know the Torah Shebichtav, that's right. But then you begin to study Talmud. He begins to teach you how to analyze halachot, the methodology of rabbinic thinking. It's so interesting. I just made a video yesterday. I'm amazed at the lack of knowledge today among people who teach halakha, who teach what halakha is. It's remarkable. People don't have a methodology. People say things that are just odd to hear. I'll give you an example. One issue that I've dealt with in 2 videos, because it's really important, and it's important because it's an obvious avera that people are making, and people are doing this avera publicly, and it's sad to see that. Saying beracha yom ha'atzmaut on Hallel, it's isur deoraita. It's isur of lo tisai et shem Adonai Elohecha l'shav. Now, just so you understand, it's not just that it's a public avera, but as I said in my previous class that was posted yesterday, it's an avera for which there is no forgiveness. The pasuk says, "Vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai Adonai el rachum mechanun el chatayim v'rachis v'emet v'oser chesed l'anafim v'osei amon v'fesha v'chata'a v'nakeh So the Hachamim say, what does it mean, benakeh? Benakeh means God will ultimately forgive you for these sins. So if a person does a sin, God forgives the person for his sins. But it says in the case of Lo Tasai et Shem Adonai Elecha Lashav, Ki Lo Yenakeh Adonai et Asher Yisai et Shemo Lashav. In this case, there's no forgiveness. That's very heavy. That's very heavy, meaning most sins, nakeh. If a person makes a tshuva, forgiven for the avera. In this case, lo yenakeh. If you start chas v'shalom saying the name of God in vain, that's not forgivable because you're desecrating God's name. You're chas v'shalom, you're cheapening, you're treating it in a way that's unbecoming and disrespectful, and God doesn't forgive people who disrespect him like that. So, so why am I mentioning this whole thing? So I saw like this Moroccan rabbi in Israel, I love, and I think is a wonderful, wonderful Tamil Hacham. I'm not saying, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't think it's fair for me to criticize somebody and he's not here and I'm not going to give him a chance to answer. So I'm just not going to mention his name because I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a wonderful Tamil Hacham and he gives very nice classes. But then he wants to like prove that you're supposed to say beracha on Yom HaAtzmaut on Hallel. So he wants to prove that. So he interviews the son of a Moroccan rabbi. Now the son is now old. The rabbi passed away many years ago. And he says, I remember my father said, Beracha on Yom HaAtzmaut. And then he interviews somebody else, that somebody else also, he remembers his father said Beracha on Yom HaAtzmaut or something of that nature. I mean, this is not an analysis of the law. That's zilzul in the Torah. You're disrespecting the Torah. How is that an analysis? That's anecdotal at best. How is anecdotal evidence in any way interesting to us? We have the mekorot. We have the actual sources. Quote to me something. Don't tell me that somebody remembers that his father once did that. That's not a Pesach Halacha. We're talking about mentioning the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, if somebody mentions the name of somebody's Over, Lo Tisai et Shem Adonai Elecha Lashav, it says, Lo Yenakeh, there's no forgiveness for that. And then it says, usually when a person does a regular Avon, the person gets punished, his family doesn't get punished. In the case of a person who says, in that case, Hashem punishes the family also. Yani, this is like one of the worst, chas v'shalom, one of the worst sins that a person can do. So now we have to analyze, should we say Beracha Yom HaAtzmaut? Oh, somebody remembers when he's young, he remembers his father said Beracha. That's not how to analyze the law. You analyze the law by opening up the actual mekorot, open up the sources. Tell me what Hanambam said. Tell me what Shulchan Aruch says. Explain it to me. Show me, give me some sort of consistent explanation of what the law is and why the law is like that.
Rabbi, when they do that, is it a way of saying for us to look back and figure out why is his father doing that?
Well,
when they do it in the Gemara,
I'll explain.
Rabbi did this and that.
It's irrelevant. Number one, I don't care why they're doing it. It's irrelevant to me. I'll tell you more. It's irrelevant to me why they're doing that. I suppose if I was a psychologist, I could get into their mind and try to analyze the psychology behind that. And I'm not going to do that. But not only is it irrelevant to me why they're doing it, it's irrelevant that they're doing it. Meaning, it's one thing if Am Yisrael, we were a nation of paupers. It's one thing if Am Yisrael was a nation of gypsies. We never got Torah from Sinai. We don't know what the Torah is. We have no Gemara. We have no poskim. And then you say, yeah, I remember my father. Yes, when we were in Ireland, we once went into a Scottish castle, and I remember he drank the wine with the left hand. Okay, so the myth has it. I'm like, okay, I mean, it's a very nice story. And if I had no Torah in my life, I would be very interested in that mythology, and maybe we'll all watch Harry Potter together and get excited about Harry Potter. That's just wonderful. But we have the sources. We know what Hanambam said. We know what the Rif said. We know what the Rosh said. We know what the Rishpa said. We know what the Poskim says. We know how they analyze the Gemara. We have the Kesef Mishneh. The issue was discussed. We have the Magid Mishneh. We have the Mishneh LaMelech. We have all the Mefarshim and Hanambam. We have the Tul Bet Yosef. So you're telling me, oh, he saw his father do that. That's how you analyze the law of Lo Tisah. Ribono shel olam. We're talking about people publicly mentioning the name of God on Yom Ha'atzmaut and on Yom Yerushalayim. And this is your proof that they should mention the name of God. I'm sorry.
Now, when they do it, let's say with the Tanaim, that's different because the Tanaim we can
No,
trust.
it's not a question of trusting. The Gemara represents the Bet Din of the Jewish people. That's a legitimate authority to make Pesach Halacha, meaning if I am going to make a Pesach on my own, that's wonderful. I'm not the Bet Din. Now, the Gemara is authoritative. They can actually establish the law for all of Am Yisrael because that's what the Gemara is. The Gemara has the authority to establish the law. We cannot establish the law. What we can do is we can analyze the Gemara and try to understand how the law was established. We can't establish it independently. That's the point. Now, once the Mashiach comes and we reestablish the Sanhedrin, then the new Sanhedrin would be able to establish new laws, right? They would have their own independent authority, right? So why did I bring this whole thing? Because, methodology, Talmud, how to study. So that was one of the things that took place in the yeshiva was how to analyze the Baraitot. We have the Sifra, we have the Sifre, we have the Mechilta, we have the Tosefta, of course we have the Mishnayot. So how do you analyze these things, right? So this was part of the curriculum for the Talmidei Chachamim, and this was part of the general curriculum. But then there was something that was only taught to a single student. It was forbidden for a teacher, a Chacham, to bring two students into the class and teach these two students the subject I'm about to say, because the subject was so weighty and so deep that the only way it could possibly be transmitted was to a single student. And usually it was only one student who was worthy. And that is the subject of Maaseh Bereshit, Maaseh Merkava, primarily Maaseh Merkava. Maaseh Merkava has to do with the esoteric knowledge of Judaism. Literally, the Merkava is a chariot of God. And of course, God doesn't have a physical chariot. We all understand that. I believe you all understand that. So something about God, whatever it is, right? So there's Maaseh Bereshit, which is one step under, which is something about the universe. And then there's Maaseh Merkava, which is something about God. So if a Hakam wanted to teach Maaseh Merkava, he was only able to do so to a student of a special intellectual, but also spiritual character. It wasn't enough for the student to be at a certain intellectual level, but he had to have a certain spiritual character, and his personality had to be a very healthy, complete personality. So if you weren't a person of this great intellectual, spiritual character, the Chacham wouldn't even consider you. So think of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai for a moment. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai knew Maaseh Bereshit and he knew Maaseh Merkava. And the Gemara says that he only taught it to one student. And that student is Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. Not Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, but Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. And it says that once Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai began to, because also when you teach Maaseh Merkava to a student, it was forbidden to teach it to the student directly, but rather the teacher had to give him Rashi Perakim. Rashi Perakim means he taught him the highlights, he insinuated it, and then the student would complete the lesson. So there was a situation where Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was transmitting the knowledge to Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, and Rabbi Azar ben Arach was listening and completing the words. And as Rabbi Azar ben Arach was completing the words, a fire came down from heaven and it began to burn the top of the, there was an orchard and it began to burn the top of the orchards. It was literally, it was like the fire, not that it was burning it, it was like covering. It was covering the top of the trees where they were. So they were engulfed in this fire. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai immediately understood that Rabbi Azar ben Arach understood Maaseh Merkabah. And he actually stood up and he gave Rabbi Azar ben Arach a kiss. He kissed him on the head, which is where the Shekhinah is. And he said the following words, Baruch Hashem Elohei Yisrael, Shenatan ben le'Abraham Avinu, Sheyodea lehavin ve'lachkol ve'gdrosh b'maaseh Merkabah. He said, praise be unto God who gave a son, a descendant to Abraham, that this descendant knows to understand, to investigate, and to articulate the Maaseh Merkabah. Ashrecha Abraham Avinu she'el Azar ben Arach yasa mehalasecha. How fortunate you are, O Abraham, our father, that you have a descendant like Rabbi Azar ben Arach. This story is related in the Talmud Bavli in Masechet Hagigah and Daf Yodalet. Yad, right? Daf Yodalet. So here we see that Rabbi Azar ben Arach achieved what no one else, none of the other Talmidim of Rabban Yochanan Zakkai achieved. So the way I understand this Mishnah is as follows. Originally, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was indeed the greatest Talmid. And that's why Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai once actually said that if I took all the Hachamim in one side and I put the Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus in the other side, the Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus outweighs all of them. But later on, when Rabbi Azar ben Arach became his Talmid, and he realized that Rabbi Azar ben Arach was the worthy Talmid, a worthy student who can study Maaseh Merkabah, and then the incident that I reported to you took place, he gave a new lesson on the subject. And Abba Shaul was there, and he heard the new lesson, and he transmitted the new lesson in the name of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. So that's why there is this shift from Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus to Rabbi Azar ben Arach. You understand?
How come he didn't teach Maser Merkabah to Rabbi Elazar ben Arach? To Eliezer Hagdol.
Ben Horkanus, right?
Sorry.
Because apparently, as great as Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was, his mind was the greatest Talmudic mind, but he wasn't. Apparently, we have to say he wasn't worthy to study Maaseh Merkabah. Not everybody is worthy to study Maaseh Merkabah. You understand? So you can be the greatest Talmudic mind and the greatest intellectual power, and yet Maaseh Merkabah is something special. You understand? Now I want to, the interesting question though. So now Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the editor of the Mishnah, he brings both traditions. Why does he bring both traditions? Why doesn't he just leave us with the tradition of Abba Shaul, which apparently was a final tradition, that Rabbi Azar ben Arach was the greatest? You understand my question? Why do you have to record both traditions? As it ended up, Rabbi Azar ben Arach was the one. It's a good question. It's something that I thought about for a while. And it's kind of a sad story. It's kind of a sad story. Let me tell you what happened. I'm not sure why this took place, but once Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, Rabbi Azar ben Arach decided to leave Yavne. Yavne was the city where when the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed and the Sanhedrin was destroyed, and Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai escaped the city of Jerusalem and saw Vespasian. I mentioned this, I believe, in my class last week, or maybe I mentioned it on Shabbat. So anyway, he established the city of Yavne, and the yeshiva, the Sanhedrin, moved to Yavne. And that's where it was. When Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, Rabbi Azar ben Arach decided to leave the city of Yavne. There was a city in Syria, apparently, if I'm not mistaken about my geography, not far from Damascus. And apparently it was a beautiful city, and his wife wanted to go to that beautiful city. It was a city where they had very good bathhouses, where it was a very pleasant place to live. And Rabbi Azad bin Arach, he moved there. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai died, so he figured, let me move there. And he was hoping that his colleagues would join him. But they didn't. And the Kohelet Rabbah, the Midrash on the book of Kohelet, on the Megillah of Kohelet, it has this really bizarre incident. The Kohelet Rabbah records that he was there and he forgot the Torah, or he forgot a lot of his learning, right? And it says that, I really don't understand this. I'm just telling you what it says. I'm not pretending like I understand what I'm about to tell you. I don't understand what I'm about to tell you. But it became so extreme. There's a pasuk in the Torah, it says, "Chodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim, rishon hu lachem mechodshei hashana." That's Parashat HaChodesh that we read the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? Or on Rosh Chodesh Nisan if it's Shabbat. So it says, instead of reading HaChodesh hazeh lachem, it says HaCheresh. He reads it, instead of the word HaChodesh, he reads HaCheresh. And instead of lachem, libam. So HaCheresh haya libam. Did their heart become deaf, right? Unable to hear. Instead of reading HaChodesh hazeh lachem, which means this is the month, meaning pointing at the new moon and saying this is the way the Rosh Chodesh is, right? He says HaCheresh haya libam. Did their heart become deaf? A terrible story. I don't understand that. I think it has symbolic meaning. Perhaps leaving Eretz Yisrael, leaving the Hachamim, it was a mistake. It's one thing to leave Eretz Yisrael and go to Babel and go to Yeshivat Surah, go to Yeshivat Nehal De'ah, go to Yeshivat Pumbedita, where the Hachamim are. So, if you leave Eretz Yisrael and you go to a place of Torah, you go to Babel, you go with where the Hachamim are, where the Yeshivot are, that's one thing. You can thrive intellectually. And we know that over Jewish history, there were Hachamim, there were great centers of Torah learning in different places in the world, primarily in Babel, during the days of the Tannaim, Emoraim, Geonim, later on in Andalusia, in Spain, right? So there were great centers of Torah learning. The problem here is twofold. Number one, he left Eretz Yisrael. But number two, when he left Eretz Yisrael, he didn't go to a place where there was Hachamim. And as great as a person is, you can be Rabbi Azad bin Arach, and if you're alone, you deteriorate. The mind goes down. It's just not the same. You can't survive as a loner. He thought that he could do it. So he went to this beautiful city and he said, I have all this Torah knowledge. That's it. I don't need, I made it. And the story teaches us that no. You will read HaChodesh hazeh lachem and you will read HaCheresh haya libam, meaning your heart became deaf. Are you understanding the deep meaning of that allegory? Your heart, the heart which is the center of the spirit of the human being, that very heart of this great man can fail to hear. Haya Cheresh. Cheresh haya libam. I'm sorry, Cheresh haya libam. Can this happen? And the answer is yes, it happened to him. So you see the deep meaning of him misreading the pasuk in that way. Cheresh haya libam. There is a story that later on, and this story makes me happy because when I first read the other story, it made me very sad. It made me very sad to see how such a great man like Rabbi Azad bin Arach, can lose his knowledge in this way. So the story goes, and this is in the Midrash, it says that later on, the Azar ben Arach was suffering, and he was thinking about what he lost. And Eliyahu Hanavi comes to him, and he reminds him of the knowledge that he lost. So that's the complete picture. Now I understand why we bring both traditions in this Mishnah. We bring the original tradition, which says that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus was the greatest Hacham. Later on, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach passed him, and we have the second tradition. Normally, you would say that I should only keep the second tradition because the second tradition was the more accurate one, in so much as Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai later on changed his mind and said Rabbi Elazar ben Arach is even greater than Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. So when Rabbeinu HaKadosh had to edit the Mishnah, he should have kept the second tradition. He should have ignored the first tradition because Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai changed his mind. Why keep the first tradition? And the answer is, after Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai died, there was a tragedy. It was a tragic mistake. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach left Israel, went to that place, which I believe is in Syria, if I'm not mistaken, not far from Damascus. He lost his knowledge. And because of that, they had to keep the original tradition of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, which said it wasn't Rabbi Elazar ben Arach who was the greatest, it was Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus who was the greatest. So here we have the different historical layers of the Mishnah, and we unpacked it, and we understand what Rabban Yochanan, what Rabbeinu HaKadosh was thinking when he put the different layers together, and he put them together as he did. That's what I want you to understand from this Mishnah in Pirqe Abot. And if there's no questions, I'll go to the next Mishnah. Okay. Halacha Yod Bet. Amar lahem, Se'u v'ur'u, ezohi derech tova sheyidbak baha ha'adam. Very interesting. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai wanted these 5 Talmidim to engage in the following project and to reach a practical conclusion. I want to explain to you what this project is about. Literally, the question, the assignment, let's call it a homework assignment. The assignment was as follows: Se'u v'ur'u, go out and investigate the following topic. Ezohi derech tova, what is a good road? Sheidbak b'ha'adam, that a person should cleave onto this road. I want to explain to you what this assignment is. There's many good traits that a person can engage in. A person, for example, say, oh, I know what the best thing, I want to commit myself to charity. Oh, well, who wouldn't want to commit themselves to charity? And who would say that charity is not a good thing? Charity is a wonderful thing. The Hachamim say, Usdaka tasil mimavet. They bring the pasuk, Usdaka tasil mimavet. So tzedakah is a great thing. Is it something that you should cleave to? It says, Sheidbak. Ezoi derech tova sheidbak ba. What does it mean, sheidbak ba? So when Hashem creates Hava, the pasuk says, Az ya'azov ish et aviv ve'et immo, ve'dabak be'ishto, ve'hayu lebasar echad. The same word, ve'dabak. What does dabak mean? Dabak means that you are now loyal to this person. You and this person are almost connected spiritually. There is a complete loyalty and bond between the husband and the wife, right? That's the idea of Kiddushin. It's a holy union. So what does it mean? Ezohi derech tova sheyidbak b'ha'adam. The same word, meaning in all circumstances. I want you to find something for me, and this isn't easy, by the way, that in all circumstances, you can say, I'm going to be loyal to this idea, and this idea is always going to serve me well in life. That's tough. Because let's go back to the idea of charity. said, oh, I always want to give charity to anybody who asks. You would say yes. Well, why not? Okay, maybe that's the case. When you're dealing something, I remember I used to be in Israel. I used to deal with professional mendicants, and I used to give. But sometimes you would. I give you an example. Like on Purim, there was a lady who came into the knis, and they're all waiting in the knis. They even before you finish reading the Megillah, they start coming, and there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody needs, of course, we want to give them. But when people act like that, you begin to wonder, do they need? So I'll give you the story. So that, and this happened so many times. There's so many variations of the story. Lady comes in, she's all dressed in black, like I don't know, some Humphrey Bogart movie. I don't know what, and I need money and this and that. Okay, and of course we give. We should give, right? And then later on, she goes to a beautiful fancy car, takes off the black clothing, puts it in the trunk, and drives away in a very, very nice car, which she was leasing for herself. Now, there's nothing wrong with leasing a nice car, and there's nothing else, but you begin to wonder, do I give money to everybody, or would it be better to actually give money to a person who is in need? Because when you give to everybody, then you're denying people who need the money, right? Because we're all limited in what we can do. So if I'm going to give 10% or 15% or 20%, but I have to be a little, perhaps I should apply some discretion. So here's a good example of maybe there are situations where it's not just good to say automatically I'm going to give to anybody who asks, because sometimes it's not going to be serving me right. Sometimes by doing that, I'm going to be denying the opportunity to give the money to somebody who actually needs. By the way, what I did, because I'm a bit sensitive to this. I'm sensitive to the idea that there's only so much I can give, and I don't want to give it to the wrong person because I really care about people who are suffering. I sincerely feel a desire to help people who need the help. It's such a big mitzvah. So I became sensitive to this, and I devised the following strategy, and I think it was quite good. If somebody came to me, knocking on the door, oftentimes, and again, another permutation, I'd give some money, no, this is not enough. Can you give me a check? I'm like, I mean, this is what I could give. But anyway, so eventually what I did is I devised the following strategy. I would say, listen, I'm so sorry, I don't have anything to give, but can I give you some food? I have I'll let you come to the closet and just take things, like maybe you need pasta, maybe you need oil, maybe you need, now, oftentimes the reaction was one of indignation. Like, how dare you? Like, who do you think I am? Do you think I'm some pauper? I know, I don't think that. You came and you were asking me for things. So I kind of was just trying to figure out whether you need, what I can do to help you. But then they would walk away, and I understood that the person is not necessarily in such a desperate situation. But then if they would come and says, yes, please, can I have something? Of course I would let them take. And then I would give them money as well, because I realized this person really needs, right? Because if a person really needs, he needs, right? So I'm not saying what you should do. And there are circumstances where we should help a person, even if he's wealthy and established. Maybe there's something he's missing in his life at the personal level. But I always try to look at humility. I use that as the litmus test. If there's a sense of humility in the person, I understand he's in need. Because when a person is in need, he has a little humility. But if it's like, like when you go to the cult, they start attacking you, and you literally feel like you're being, harassed. I sense that there's no humility there, and I feel like maybe I'm giving to the wrong person. Maybe I should find what?
Today, when we have all these organizations that can handle these things, isn't it better to just say, look, I can't tell who needs and who doesn't.
Right.
Give the money to Bikor Cholim, let Bikor Cholim investigate and see who really needs or any of these organizations.
Look, that's a personal choice. Myself, I actually feel a need to give to people. I feel that it's such a big mitzvah. I want to do it directly. I learned that from my grandfather, Alav Shalom, Shalomo Kohen. My mom's father was a great tzaddik. So anyway, I want to do the mitzvah. I really do. But I also don't want to just give out money. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't just give out money. I know I'm limited. But certainly if you feel like, okay, I don't have, I can't, figure it out. Let me give it to Bikur Cholim and tell them I'm wanting to give this to poor people. That's fine. You can do that. But you should always try to give where the money goes to a poor person. There's no greater zechut than helping a person pay his bills. There's no greater zechut. And I do that till today. Like I actually have a friend of mine, I call him in Israel, I said, listen, and I send him the money, and I know he's going to families who actually are having trouble paying the bills. And I want you to give it to those families. You want me to give it to Kolel? You want to give it to Talmud Torah? I said, listen, those are good things. And I'm all for giving to Talmud Torah, but I said, no, I want you to go to people who need money. I want to help them. It's a zechut for me to be able to do that mitzvah. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I feel about this. But here's an example of a mitzvah. If one of the talmidim, 5 talmidim, were to come back with a homework assignment, yeah, you should always give tzedakah under all circumstances, no matter what. The answer is, well, really? I mean, do you have unlimited means and you can give everybody? So if you give everybody, are you then not denying people who actually need? So that's not the right answer. That would not be the right answer to this question, right? Or another example, there's another good character trait. Always accept everybody with a sever panim yafot. Well, okay, that's the answer to the question, really? So now if you're in love, an Arab is coming with a gun and he's shooting you because you're a Jew, that's what you always do? So you see how even good character traits are not the answer to this homework assignment. The homework assignment was, I want you to find something that you can cleave to, that you can have loyalty to. It could be a compass in your life that, if I follow this one trait, this is what I'm about, it's always going to take me to the right place. Giving a nice smile to a person who is about to stab you or to this or whatever, it's not going to always work. It's a good thing, but there's circumstances where it's not a good thing. Okay, so that's a tough homework assignment. So now that we understand the nature of the assignment, and the key word is yidbak. Yidbak, like v'davak be'ishto. You understand? All right. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, the first student to give the answer to the question was Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, he gives an answer. Ayin tova, have a good eye. Let me explain that. What does it mean to have a good eye? So we are all experiencing the world around us, right? So we're put in this world and we have these experiences. And some of the experiences are pleasant, others are less pleasant. And we try to deal with the various experiences that as we go through life and we travel through this journey, right? Hoping to reach a good place at the end. But we have all these things that are taking place around us. And oftentimes, things get messed up. And what I've seen is that what's most likely to make things get messed up is our perception of things. The way we perceive the world around us has a very strong effect on the way the world around us reacts to us. And that's the reason that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus says you have to view things in a beautiful way. The world, the experiences you have are all put around you by God. And you have to realize the wisdom and even the beauty of the situation you're in. It's so easy to not see the beauty in the world. It's so easy to go through life and not appreciate these beautiful things. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a poor person. Let's say you don't have money, right? And because of this, you're always like, your heart is always low. You're always like, you're always thinking, you're always having trouble. It's true. It really is true. That's a real situation. That those things are weighing down upon you. But he says, have an ayin tova. Try to see something beautiful in your life. So you're a poor person, you have a loving wife, you have kids. The kids have certain traits because you don't have so much money. Perhaps they have more, better character traits. Perhaps they have more drive. So oftentimes what happens is that when we're struggling through life and we overcome the struggles, we leave things behind. Some of the things we left behind are actually bad, but we were so focused on the bad things we left behind that we completely failed to look at the beautiful things that were always there. There's always beautiful things in life, but we get so, focused on the bad, right? And I see this all the time, as a rabbi, I myself, for example, I love the world that my parents gave me. And the Shabbatot in my parents' house, they were so beautiful, right? And the Torah I used to study with my father. And thank God I appreciated that.
Wow.
I still don't think I appreciated it enough. I still think that, there were times in my life where I was focused on certain challenges. And the focus on those challenges, it reduced my ability to experience fully the beauty of what was around me. And there was a lot of beautiful things around me. So Baruch Hashem, I really did experience it and I enjoyed it. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people are taken down and they completely lose sight. Everybody has beautiful things in their life. God loves us. He gives us beautiful things, right? But we just ignore them because we're always thinking not about what we have. We're always thinking about what we don't have. And that's the lesson of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. The lesson is look at the beautiful things and focus on those things. There's always beautiful things. Even a good glass of cold water. It's amazing. You have this biological need for water. We live in an age where you have cold, crisp water. What an amazing thing. They didn't have this 100 years ago. They didn't have this 200 years ago. I know in Europe, I read Shalot Tshuvot of Rabbi Baruch Epstein. They used to go to the bars to drink alcohol because there was no water. They didn't have clean water. So people used to go to the bar and just drink, because that's where they got water from. That's where they got their liquid from. I mean, it's incredible. We just have this water here. And there's so many things like this that we have and we don't appreciate. So focus on the beauty. Go outside tomorrow morning. If you have a garden, just, before you start Shahri, just look at the beautiful sky, see the squirrels running on the tree and the birds chirping. They're all happy. They really are. It's incredible. You just hear all the world is like singing. I like waking up early in the morning before I pray. And I just like to meditate for 5 minutes and see all these beautiful things waking up. It's always there. The question is where we want to look at it. So that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus' wonderful lesson. Ayin Tova. Look at things with the beautiful eye, because you have these filters, right? You can choose what filters. You can have Ayin Ra'ah, you can have Ayin Tova. Use the Ayin Tova filters. It's much better set of glasses to be using.
And they didn't have bagels 100 years ago.
And they didn't have bagels. They didn't have bagels.
In the mornings.
No bagels, no bialis.
They didn't have the minyan.
Yeah, that's right. It's really incredible. We live in an incredible age. There's so many wonderful things in the world that really, and I know you meant it like Cap jokingly, but it's true. There's an abundance of food. They didn't have such an abundance of food in pre-industrial times, right?
Right.
Yeah. Let's continue. We have a couple more minutes. We'll continue. So Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Haver Tov. Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah says, what I think is the guiding principle? Always try to be a good friend. Try to cultivate a meaningful relationship with somebody or outside you. By a meaningful relationship, a friend, because I can cultivate a relationship with a student, I can cultivate a relationship with a teacher, I can cultivate a relationship with a person that I help. A friend, try to find somebody that loves you and that you love him, right? Because that's going to take you through life in a different way, right? We all need to have this person around us that we can talk to, that we can share ideas with, that we can throw things off. So the one thing that you can never go wrong with is to cultivate a friendship. And to cultivate a friendship, it's not simple, right? Aseh lecha haver. You have to invest in it, right? You have to put into it, and not in a negative sense, but again, you get from the world what you put into the world. If you put seeds and you work hard, you plow the land and you sweat and you do what you need to do, the seeds will eventually turn into a plant, and that plant will give you fruit. So one of the most beautiful fruits you can have is cultivate a good friendship with someone. That is something that you will never regret. That's a lesson of Rabbi Yoshua ben Hanania. So I just want to summarize what we studied today. We studied a little about the star Talmid of Rabban Yochanan Zakkai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. He was the greatest Talmudic mind. We studied about Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, who was able to reach a level that none of the other Talmidim were able to reach, which was Ma'aseh Bereshit, Ma'aseh Merkava, the esoteric aspects of Judaism. We also saw the downfall of Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. And this teaches us how important it is to be connected with people. And even the greatest Hacham, how he fell. But then we also saw how this great Hacham, after he fell, Hashem saw him and he sent Eliyahu Hanavi, and Eliyahu Hanavi brought him back up, and he brought him back to the knowledge that he had. So there's always hope in life. There's always hope. And we also studied the advice of 2 out of the 5 Talmidim. One advice is, look at the world in a beautiful way. Hashem loves each and every one of us, and he's always putting beautiful things in our life. We just have to look for them and enjoy them. He wants us to enjoy them. And then the Rabbi Yoshua says, wait, I think cultivate a relationship. You want to have a beautiful world? The most beautiful thing in the world is to have people that you love and that love you back. Because if you have people that you love and that love you back, automatically you'll see the beauty in the world. It's hard not to see how beautiful the world is when you love people and they love you back. So that's how the Rabbi Yoshua reaches the same goal that the Rabbi Eliezer wanted to reach. They both want to reach the same place, but they do it in a slightly different way. So Be'ezat Hashem on Shabbat in the Knis, we will continue this, and the next week we'll continue wherever it is that I get to on Shabbat. So let me wish you all Shabbat Shalom. Tizku leshanim rabot. I hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts our tefillot and he protects each and every one of the Hayalim who are entering the Gaza Strip, who are there protecting Am Yisrael, who are doing such a chesed to Am Yisrael, these brave young boys. They go in, they're little boys, I know they're 18, 19, 20, whatever, but they're going into this dangerous place and they're defending Am Yisrael. They are real heroes. These are real.
Hacham, is your son there?
Too soon to say. Soon to say. I don't know what's happening, but and nevertheless, because I think of my son, I think of all the sons, all of our sons,
Of course.
our sons, and we love them, and we really want Hashem to protect each and every single one of them. So it's important.
Everybody be safe.
Everybody should be safe. These boys, Hashem should protect them. He should protect all of Am Yisrael. Inshallah, we should see the full Geula. Bimhera b'yameinu. Amen.
Amen. Ken Yiratzon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.